U.S. Census Bureau counts the country's population once every 10 years. Its most recent tally in 2010 showed more than 1.8 million people in Nebraska. That was an increase of 115,000 from the census in 2000. However, the number of people in rural areas, essentially for census purposes towns with less than 2,500, fell more than 5% and made up about 27% of the state's total. A little more than 4 years ago, the University of Nebraska established the Rural Futures Institute, or RFI, to help support and build communities in rural Nebraska. RFI is located on Lincoln's campus and last week named its first group of fellows to help in its goals. Chuck Schroeder is the Institute's executive director. He joined us earlier this week to discuss that news as well as RFI's efforts across the state.
The Rural Futures Institute is a critical part of the University of Nebraska in that it really brings the university to life in rural communities, not only in Nebraska but beyond. Our mission is twofold. Number one is to build the capacity of rural people to deal with the very complex challenges that they have before them, as well as the opportunities that they'd like to pursue. But in addition, and sometimes more difficult, is to build the confidence of rural people to feel that indeed they have the capacity to influence their future, to pursue the pathway that they would prefer for their community.
It might be helpful for me if you define what your definition of rural is.
Well, we have some fun with that. The statistics folks define rural as communities of under 50,000 population. But the truth is, when we're working in Nebraska and states, surrounding states, North Dakota, South Dakota, Kansas, you realize that we're all rural. We have a population of 1.8 million people here in Nebraska. That wouldn't even be a neighborhood in cities like Tokyo and Jakarta and Mexico City. So we don't get too wound up in what's rural. The truth is, we don't spend a lot of time and resources in Lincoln and Omaha because they have resources to deal with their own issues. But otherwise, we deal with communities across Nebraska and again and across our region. Because even what we sometimes consider small cities, micropolitan cities, Hastings, Kearney, Norfolk, Columbus, Scottsbluff, those are communities that while they have larger populations than we would typically focus on, they have a tremendous impact on smaller rural communities in their region. So we believe it's important that we understand what's going on there, the dynamics economically, socially, culturally, so that we can have a positive influence on an entire rural region.
Explain to me how it works, how a community works with you or you interact with communities.
Sure, that comes in several ways. Number one, we have a very important competitive awards program. We're going into our 5th year where faculty members at one of the University of Nebraska campuses will partner with other faculty, not only at the University of Nebraska, but at state and community colleges, with nonprofit organizations, with private companies, and in particular, with rural communities that are trying to address an issue, whether that's in healthcare, broadband, K-12 education, leadership development, business transition, all of those issues that combine to create the particular mix in a community.
So is the goal to bring jobs to these rural communities, to improve the environment and the surroundings for these rural communities? How do you see it?
We try to influence the thriving, if you will, in rural communities. And in fact, we have some work going on right now to better define that in data. But the truth is, it's not a single issue in any community. A community has to be economically thriving in order for people to live there. But we also know there has to be strong access to education resources, lifelong learning for people to want to live in a community. They have to know that they're not disadvantaging their children, that they're not disadvantaging themselves in the opportunity for lifelong learning. There has to be access to quality health care. People need to know that indeed they're not moving to a place where, again, they're disadvantaging their families. It has to be a place that is taking care of the environment. We know that one of the great things about rural places is that they are in a natural environment. They are where they can influence the natural resources around them. So all of these factors must come together in order for a community to be that legitimate best choice for a young family looking for a place where they can come build a career, build their family, get engaged in a community where they can make a difference.
How will the fellows that you recently announced help you in your goals?
We're so excited about the launching of our RFI Fellows program. This has been a dream of ours really from the outset. So what we've done is now bring together in a lengthy process of weighing that right mix, diverse mix of talents and personalities, skills and capabilities. We now have 27 fellows that are appointed, and these include faculty members from various disciplines across the University of Nebraska, as well as a faculty member from Peru State College. We have what we call community innovation fellows, who are proven leaders in rural communities in places like Auburn and Ord, smaller communities where we have leaders who have demonstrated the capacity to make a difference. They're helping us right now with our strategic planning process, really looking seriously at how we try to ensure that there is a thriving Nebraska, thriving Great Plains by 2030, because we believe if we can demonstrate in this region strong, viable, smaller communities where people can live, work, play, build themselves as human beings, we think it'll have an impact on rural people around the world.